Good evening and welcome to the Monomoy Regional School Committee meeting of March 9th, 2016. I call the meeting to order at 7:02. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from our February 24th meeting.
So moved.
Second. Any discussions, corrections, additions, deletions? Okay, I'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved. Next on the agenda is public comment. We have public comment.
I don't go away. And then Barbara, actually, if I can give you the extras one, sure, pass to. The Adams family opens a week from tonight. Amanda this morning set out this email that I figured it would be easier if I just made photocopies for email. You're all obviously entitled to one free ticket, but if you could email us and let us know which night you'd like to come on. And then if you need additional tickets, you can put that in the email. And
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. It's 7 o'clock, Wednesday night, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. We also do a 3 o'clock matinee on Saturday. Thursday as a community service kind of oriented performance. We started this several years ago, and the price of admission is 3 canned goods, and then that goes to the food pantry. But it is indeed the Adams family. I found the show 2 years ago when they did it over at the Academy and tucked it away in my brain saying, ooh, that would be a really good show for us. A big pack of leads along with ample things for full company to do. The makeup's awesome, the music is awesome, the set is wild. Hope to see you all there. Yes?
Are they creepy and spooky?
Yeah.
All together spooky?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Wait till you see it with the makeup. I can't stop looking at Matt Hall is this like crazy metallic shade of blue, and he has 4-inch platforms on his shoes, so he's even taller than normal.
That's very
Excellent.
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
a shawl
it's
snapping up.
fantastic. Yeah. It's fantastic.
Had
So,
any of them ever seen the Adams Family before they did this?
theater class kids did. Deb showed it to them. But yeah. I'd say I hadn't. I just so. But just
Arriving a couple of minutes early, I popped in to see the dress rehearsal. One of the greatest lines in the show is when the lead singer, at least lead for this evening, Morticia turns to the audience and says, "Death is right around the corner."
Mustafa says coroner. Get it? It is a super funny show and very, very fun. We put in a whole lot of work, so hope to see you guys there.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That's the kind of public comment I like.
Yeah, pretty fantastic. Next on the agenda is the student representative report.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you? Oh gosh, sorry. Too close. Okay. So I just have some updates about what's going on in the high school. Okay. So first of all, yesterday we had. I wanted to start with this. Okay. So the girls basketball made it to tournament. We talked about that last time, and they went all the way to Boston, and they played a really good game. Unfortunately, they lost, but I wanted to mention that I don't know if you all have seen, but we have really, really great morning announcements now, and they're actually on YouTube if you want to see them there. It's WMRHS on YouTube, but the whole team from the TV production class actually went to Boston and filmed the basketball game live, which was really cool, and they talked about it later on in the announcements, and it's been really neat to see the progression of the announcements getting better all over the school year. They have a jingle and everything, so it's a great way to start our day, and the basketball team did well too, so just tie it all together. Also, as Mr. Richard said, I was going to mention the play next week, as you just heard. Also, yesterday we had a basketball tournament, Hoops for Heart, which was very successful. There were plenty of kids and teams, so that's nice. We do volleyball too in the fall. So, Also, what else was I gonna say? Oh, okay. Spring signups are coming up for spring sports as well as the winter athletic banquet the beginning of next week. I wanted to mention too. So, girls golf. I just came from the golf course. We have kind of started captain's practices, but I wanted to mention that our home course actually one of them is Eastward Ho in Chatham, which we're so lucky to play at, right? And so I just wanted to say that there's 2 pros at Eastward Ho, and for the past couple weeks and throughout the season, they actually give us lessons Monday through Friday, and they bought all of us new clubs. And they give us, there's 4 of us seniors on the team this year, and we're all getting scholarships at the end of the season. So I just wanted to mention like how cool that is, how they're so nice to us, and there's a man, Mr. Jack Farrell, that really works really closely with us, and he is so kind and so patient, especially as I lob it in the wrong direction. So they're just so great, and I just want everyone to know how nice they've been to us, because it's really unbelievable. And actually, the state tournament at the end of our season is at Eastward Ho this year too, which is really cool, and we totally have an advantage because it's a pretty hard course and we played a lot. So, yeah. We had, this coming Saturday we have a chili fest with a bunch of local businesses donating chili, as well as a few teachers making chili to raise money for human rights. So I think there's going to be 12 different types of chili, if you like that, at noon on Saturday. Last week we had spread the word to end the word, the R word. And we all got t-shirts, the best buddies did, as well as the peer leaders, and we all signed the pledge at lunch to spread the word to end the word. We also conducted, as a sort of a continuation of Iowa, and all of the senior government classes, I don't know, maybe we interviewed a few of you, we did exit polls during Super Tuesday. And sorry, this is so long this time. But finally, I just want to mention that the graduation program was finalized today, which is so crazy, but very exciting. So, yeah, that's all I've got this week. Thank you very much.
Do you have any particulars on the Chili Fest, like where it is and what time it is?
I'm sorry. It's here at the school at noon on Saturday.
Very
Yes. And I know there's. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm going to ask a question when you're finished.
Okay. I was just going to say, I know a few businesses, the Lost Dog Pub, the Lanto, I know Miss Terenzi's making chili, and she says her special ingredient is chocolate, so I'm interested to see that. So just a few places, yeah.
You mentioned that morning announcements are on YouTube. Are they also on the local cable channel that the school has?
You know what, I'm not sure about that. I don't believe so, but I could be wrong. But I know they're posted every day at 8 o'clock on the YouTube channel that anybody can see. So, yeah, but that would be interesting. I can find out. Yes.
I believe we're just about to begin the streaming on that. One of the last things that was falling in place over the New Year's vacation time period, the Chatham Selectmen voted to pen a letter to Comcast to give us access to be able to broadcast on the Chatham channel. So we're in the process now of, we've given that letter to Comcast, and in the process of getting on to the educational channels in both towns so that we can then start live broadcasting, and then ultimately in the upcoming months start live broadcasting using cameras that are installed here as planned.
What channel would that be on though? 18 is the one everybody watches in town.
22, I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I'm going to request that we have the stuff on 18 because the selectmen's meeting. I mean, we could do both.
We have our own.
Yeah, so what? That the town watches 18. We can do that, and people might move over to that. But because people watch the selectmen's meeting on 18.
I think the issue is we'll have control of that station. So from in the control room here, we'll be sort of putting on a broadcast loop. We don't control the town station.
No, we don't.
It was my understanding. I'm sorry. May I?
You can follow up, yeah, go ahead.
It was my understanding that we have had access to this cable channel for quite some time. I don't understand why there had to be a letter from the selectmen. This was an agreement with Comcast that's been in effect for quite some time, for a number of years, if I'm not mistaken.
The town has control of it. So the selectmen had to tell Comcast it was okay for us to broadcast on that station.
And that's just happened?
Yeah, and again, part of it's just aligning the new, this new studio and making sure that this new, that Comcast recognizes this studio is the one that's broadcasting out and generating the signal.
I'm just asking the question because I have contacts at Cape Cod Media Center and I had heard something different, so.
Amy?
Lainey, I think it would be great if a member of the golf team could write like a little letter of thanks to the Eastward Ho, but to the letter, a letter to the editor of the Chronicle.
Oh, yes, that's a great idea. Okay. Yeah, we were just talking about it today because as I said, we all got new golf clubs. Some of us got them last summer and some of us got them today, actually. So we were saying I don't know if you tell me if you guys think this is a good idea, but we were going to get a picture of our team and put it on, a poster and have everyone write thank you and have everyone sign it with a message. But yeah, maybe that's such a good idea to
That'd
send
be great,
to the Chronicle.
and you could send the picture to Tim as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
Tim.
Yeah.
Wood, the editor.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
great.
that
Yeah.
would be great.
Yeah,
We
that's a
always
good way,
put
because I've
in
been
a
trying to
picture.
think, how would it be, how would be a good way to get it out that,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a good
It was like Chatham Wars in a few months ago when they were so good to the elementary school. I just think,
Right.
it's so nice of them. Yeah,
It's
thank you,
terrific.
I will definitely do that. Thanks.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Terry?
Follow up on the TV channel, when this gets activated, would there be plans for, I take for example, the Addams Family play, or et cetera, as those things get finished off live, would we have the right to video those in the town?
So literally anything that our students are filming, they can just add into, so I'm sure that, that by the time graduation comes around, people all summer will be watching or have a chance to watch graduation again and again and again.
Yeah. But, Terry, in answer to your question, plays like the Addams Family? No, we can't, because there are copyright laws and expenses that go along with that. But band concerts and basketball games and that type of thing can, right?
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, they're very, very careful about what, the license has a certain number of performances and, to broadcast on television would.
I should have known that, yes.
Yeah.
Good, thank you, yeah.
But all of these things we're having, where parents come and talk about substance abuse, or the police come in and talk about cyberbullying or something, we can put that on.
Yeah.
That would be fabulous.
Do we have a fixed camera in there, or would that be with a freestanding?
I don't believe we have fixed cameras in the auditorium, so we would just bring cameras in.
Yeah.
A follow-on question, have you worked with the Cape Cod Media Center in order to get this up and running?
No, we've been relying on our film teacher.
Because they're actually surprised that you haven't reached out to them. That's what they're there for. For assistance, for mentoring, for that sort of thing. So that might be something you want to do.
What's the name of the organization?
Cape Cod Media Center?
Not familiar.
It's our local resource for anything that has to do with broadcasting, essentially.
Any other questions? Move on to recognitions. Yes.
Do we have any other student representatives from the other schools?
Not this evening, no.
They exist.
We had a great presentation last meeting from Howard Elementary School. They did a great job. Two ladies and a gentleman came and did a great presentation.
Stephen, I'd like to say for Lainey, I really appreciate that you come every week to this. It's just so wonderful, because other years, sometimes we've had a couple different people, but nobody would show up. And it's just wonderful when we have a set thing that I mean, I think everybody loves that part of it. Hearing what's here for the kids.
Oh, and you know what? I just wanted to add too. Katie Barr, the valedictorian of my class.
Yes.
She was one of the queens or something in the St. Patrick's Day parade.
Oh,
I just wanted to add that too. I skipped over it, sorry, but that was cool. So good. Thank you. Sorry.
When will we hear from the other schools?
As they have things to present to us.
Could this be a regular topic?
Answer.
The elementary schools are going to be alternating at the second meeting of the month. So last week was Harwich Elementary. At the end of this month will be Chatham Elementary.
Okay.
So for the elementary schools, they have a slot for the second meeting of the
Awesome.
month
Good. How
on a
about-
rotating basis.
Great. How about the middle school?
I know Mark's planning on having presentations. I don't think the student government group has.
Right, I think the
Come
last
together to
time
do that.
that we asked that they hadn't formed a student government group yet, that was, I remember. Because the previous
Their
leader,
advisor
left,
went to a different.
so they hadn't
Place.
reformulated that.
Do we have any kind of date on that?
I don't know.
Perhaps you could find out. That would be great.
One thought on middle school and even the high school. With the high school, we hear about what's happening for the kids and the sponsored things, but it would be great here, either from the principals or the students, about other things like what they might be doing in English class or something, not just student activities, but what might be happening in the school to share, you know. It's just a lot of interest, and I know that they send out some bulletins talking a little bit about that, but it would be great to hear a little more of that.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Excuse me?
Yes, that would be nice to hear more at our meetings.
Any other questions or comments? Move on to recognitions.
In your packets, there is a letter to Mr. Paul Collier from BA Event Promotions, just thanking him for a generous donation of $1,500 to support the Monmouth Regional Cross Country team to get new uniforms and gear. So we appreciate that and his support for our programs, just like he was talking about how District O and the pros there are supporting girls golf.
Does he have somebody in this team, or does he, I mean, I don't even know, when we get these letters of these people that are doing this, I wonder, you know, whether they've got a business in town that they're contributing from. It's just nice to hear, because they're just names as far as I know.
I think this is a group that promotes different running activities, and there's the kids have been involved in supporting his organization, and I think he's just thanking them back.
That's wonderful. I mean, it's fabulous when they do that.
So for recognitions,
We'll move on to reports and discussions.
I don't believe we have any representatives here from the Audubon or from the group, so I think we can table that in case they do arrive. But I think what they were wanting to talk about are some vernal pools that they're in the process of creating in the lands behind the middle school that they would access through the softball field to go and build and create these and create some living laboratories for the students to go out and see and use.
Next is 2016-17 school calendar. Have any highlights you'd like to share?
I think it just there are some things that about the calendar that are still to be worked out and resolved. But I think it's important for us to publish a calendar so families know when the school year is going to be in, or to begin to plan appropriately for their summer times and what sort of support they might need for their children. There will be half days for for conferences at the elementary and middle school level. We need to go and plug those onto the calendar. The other conversation that is currently going on, we didn't have half days at the high school this year for mid-year exams, and there's a proposal from the high school to reinstate a half-day schedule. So there's a proposal that Principal Burkhead is bringing forward from his department heads. They've sort of surveyed on the plan that they think might make better sense for the students, and it's one of the things that as we were going through the strategic planning process, we heard from the students that they want to see something like that.
Do you know why they switched to full day versus half day this year?
I think it was just the time on learning, and I think part of the conversation is just trying to wrestle with should 8th graders have the exams or not, and it was just time to sort of step back and have a bigger conversation about the purpose of exams. Do you want to have 1 a day, 2 a day, or so I think they put a lot of thought into it and have a proposal coming forward. And I suspect that Principal Burkhead will be able to present that with the department heads when they are here at our next meeting to discuss the program of studies with you. So that's one of the things that'll be coming next meeting.
Thank you.
I have a question on November 8th. I believe last year someone, not me, asked the same question. How did you come up with November 8th instead of like the 10th or 14th, where parents would have like a 4-day weekend?
It's, if I am correct, I believe that's election day, and this is an all-K professional development that happens then, and there are, while in our school district we don't have people voting in our schools, in other Cape districts that happens in their schools, so so it's a good time for the schools to get together for professional development time.
Elementary doesn't have voting there? Okay, that makes sense.
I have a question. The 40-minute early release days, did we vote this at some point in the past when I was not yet on the committee in perpetuity? Or for what period of time?
Well, we established it as that was going to be on the calendar. Yes.
For
So
what?
does that-
For every year going forward?
No, we're voting on the calendar once again for next year.
Okay, so theoretically, we could do something besides the early release days for professional development. We could change that, correct?
Theoretically, yes.
Steve, might well be, but that was a negotiated article with the Unit A staff. So I
I
think
stand corrected.
And I also want to emphasize that I think it's important and imperative for the district to have professional development time allocated. And I think that school districts do it in a variety of ways. Some school districts you'll see, again, it's a negotiated thing. You'll see more full days that school doesn't happen, so that you have these full days that teachers are getting together. Fewer of them, so 1 or 2 over the course of the year, which makes the professional development sort of a one-of type of thing. The want, as we were going into regionalization, was to create a professional development opportunity for teachers to routinely get together, work together, and sort of build on things, not just have it be one of and done.
I have absolutely no issue with professional development. In fact, I was looking at our school on the DESE website, and it shows that we're at 50% of professional development as far as where we should be. It's not that I have an issue with the professional development, it's the 40 minutes early release. I think it would better serve us to change it, to have longer periods of time on different days, more like it used to be. I'm just asking the question about it. But if it's in Unit A and that's, you know, if that's something that we can't get around until it comes up for renewal, then it's a moot point at the moment. But, you know, it's not that I have an issue with professional development, I think we should be doing more. I just want to make that clear.
That's it.
The early release day and the 9th, just, you know, it seems like they're every other week most of the time. But it seems like that week of November 7th is going to be quite chaotic anyways, that maybe it would behoove thinking about to move that early release.
I think that's every other week, because
Well, it's
one week is a staff meeting, the
it's
next
not
week
always
is
every
a...
other week though,
This might be the week that's the half
half days,
for, what do you call it?
conferences.
Yeah.
I mean, it's every other week, but there's a couple in here where it's not every other week. So
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just something to think about, that week is gonna be tough for any sort of continuity. You know, full day off,
Yeah.
early release day, full day
It's
off.
hard on working parents.
I would see no reason why we couldn't move it to the 16th.
And like I said, it's not really necessary for me, I have some flexibility.
So I have no qualms moving it to the 16th. And I think you brought up a point that will potentially create other hiccups, that in that time frame, and that 2-3 week period of time is when these elementary and middle school conferences typically are. And one of the things we tried to do this past year was move those conferences, which I think in our past, going back a couple of years, would have fallen on the 21st and 22nd and really kind of wiped out that week completely for momentum. And we tried to spread them into the other weeks.
Scott, I don't know if, I mean, I don't know if this is the proper time to mention this, but I did feel like this year it was very awkward in that the report cards at the elementary school came after the conferences, where normally you get them before the conference, so you have, you know, some material. I mean, our teacher was great and she had lots of material for us to look at, examples of his work, but just food for thought in looking at when those conferences happen.
So, is everybody okay if we move the 9th to the 16th? And I'll look into the conferences and
Tie those into it, I think.
I'll move to approve the proposed calendar for school year 2016, 2017 with the change that we just discussed, changing the 40-minute early release date from November 9th to November 16th.
Second.
Any other questions or discussion?
So are we voting on the calendar? But don't we need to first know about the half-days and like the half-days for the high school for midterm exams? It seems premature to be voting on something that,
Right.
So we're basically voting on what we see here. And
okay, and then there'll
when
be
the
another
additional-
pass-through?
Then we'll have the additions
And
to
then
it,
we'll approve
the additions.
finals are done. This just gives families the,
The start day and the end day and the holidays.
Vacation days.
the important stuff.
I would say that, I mean, I would like for there to be a little note on the bottom that, says that there's, you know,
Subject to change.
yes.
Yeah, if there's some way we could make it clear that we're voting on certain parts of this, but some parts of it could change. I would agree with that.
It might be, I don't know if this would be helpful or not, but put draft, or, I don't know, something, because I would hate to see this one go up on the refrigerator or something and have people go by this. In other years, we've had all kinds of problems before you were here on, people didn't know that they had a half day for something or other, and they wouldn't be anyone around to get their child. If it was a conference day, they, I mean, especially it was their first child, they just didn't know.
How much longer will it take to determine the other issues that need to be determined?
I think the others, by our next meeting, will be in place.
So
So is there any reason we wouldn't vote on this at the next meeting?
Fine.
Then have the full final product?
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're wanting to get word out to parents, I mean, maybe on the website you could have the start day, end day, and holidays. I mean, the 2 February, April vacation, that's the only thing I can think of that people are trying to book around.
So I'll withdraw my motion.
And I withdraw my second.
Just as a reminder, as it affects the every other Wednesday, the PLC time that was negotiated, that in our strategic plan, we've created a target to create a steering committee that would evaluate this, so that we will, as a committee, have an opportunity, whether it's the end, this is the first year of it, at the end of this year and the next year, to have a group come before us, someone representative of a group, and say, how's it going, from parents' viewpoint and from the staff and from the administrators who lead up these groups. So it's 40 minutes shot a day, and then an hour and a half in the afternoon every other Wednesday. So it's a fairly big commitment for the teachers as well as for the school system. So I think it's worthwhile to know that we'll have a follow-up, once or twice a year to see how it's going.
Okay, so it's tabled until the next meeting. Next on the agenda is a copy release proposal.
What copiers?
As I discussed with everybody at the last school committee meeting, our leases, we worked over the last few years to get them in line with the Howard leases and the Chatham leases for the copiers. And so they all, we have many of the leases that came up March of 2016. So over the last few weeks, I went with the principals or their representatives through the building, looked at what their copiers' needs are, worked with Ken from Kenmark on, which is a state contract vendor, and we went through to see the needs and to make sure that everything was taken care of for the principals. And this would be my recommendation, the copiers in yellow. It would be for a 3-year lease using the Massachusetts state contract OFF 32. And it's a 3-year term. They come with scan print. We can print from smartphones, and what's important too is we can print from Chromebooks, so we'll be able to set up here at the high school a dedicated copier that students can print to. And we'll be instituting codes for confidentiality purposes, as well as some tracking. So if I'm in my office and I have to print across the hall and it's sensitive information, it won't come out until I go put in my code. So there'll be a coordination with our technology department. And we've partnered with Kenmark, and they provide us with excellent service. The annual cost is $70,991.88. And I had budgeted $78,000 for the copier leases. And what my goal is to do is to scale back and become less reliant on printers, because the copiers will be all networked, and it's much less costly to print than to use the cartridges, the ink cartridges on the printers are expensive. So, I don't know if anyone has any questions about this.
You mentioned, I think you just mentioned that they are, in addition to being copiers, they're also, and I see that some of them say fax next to them. So are they scanners as well?
Scanners, yes,
And does that mean that the documents can be scanned and saved as PDF files?
yes.
And that's saved to a memory stick, or does it go to a centralized computer as a scan?
Well, each copier has its own, it would stay, so what happens is it's connected to your email, so it happens right now too, so when I scan, then I scan to a folder directed on my computer, so it's pointed to my desktop when I plug it in. But the copies will allow somebody, I wasn't sure which way you were going, if I had, for instance, a budget presentation on a flash drive, I could plug the flash drive in and print it from there.
What's the dollar value of this to the current dollar value of contracts?
Compared to,
It's actually, it's gonna be less if mostly because many of the machines, the ones that are in red, are not under service contracts, so we've been spending quite a bit on having the contracts, the technicians come out to fix machines that were not under a service contract. So this will be 3 years, and then in 3 years, we can swap them out. When we came together, we had an abundance of copiers because we closed Howard Middle School, and we moved a bunch around, and we purposely did not purchase any copiers through the building project, because at the time, we had too many. So we already, at one point, when we came together 2 years ago, scaled back on some of the machines. And then the next piece, which I'm not prepared to tonight, but the ones that are indicated in red and say we own the machines, those will have to be declared surplus. And many of them have, the parts are no longer available. Some of them have, been in place since, one is in place since 2007 and has a lot of wear and tear on it. So we use them quite a bit.
The monthly service fee, is that locked in for the full 3 years, or is that adjustable after the first year based upon the number of copies done by machine?
Well, we have copies up to, a number of prints, you can copy up to another, but I don't know that number, I'm sorry. But in terms of the addition, if we go over what we're allowed. But in the state contract, you get 3 years, and you also get a year's supply of toner.
Okay. Yeah.
What other companies did you contact for a quote?
I did not. We were because it was a state contract, the state does our bidding for us, and we've been happy with the services. I didn't look at another company.
Are they the only ones that have a state contract?
No, there'd be other copiers, but I'm not really sure in terms of the service on the Cape. What happened originally was there was Ricoh and Savin. So we had some Ricoh machines and some Savin machines. Well, then Ricoh bought Savin. So when we came together, we had one representative who was from Ricoh, and then we had another representative who was from Savin. So then what ended up happening is that the corporate office had to decide which representative got us as a client. And so it went to the local, Ken Mark, who's in Mashpee, it went to that organization. So we've had good service with them, we've had a good relationship with them. The state does the bidding, so we can honor the state contract pricing. But I did not seek prices from other vendors.
Sure.
So I'm just looking at one here that it says under Harwich Elementary School, move to Chatham. So does that mean you're not replacing that there?
We're not, it ended up, that's, you know how you have the Rizzo machines that do bigger copying for, so we had 2 machines at Howard Elementary School, so we don't need to have 2 there, but they could use one over at Chatham Elementary. So it's just repurposing it.
Which one of these is the color copier?
The way that we set it up was to have color copiers in each main office.
Okay, so which one is that? Main office?
Right.
That's the 7 and whatever it is on the punch list at the bottom. So it will come out of the library and go to the main office instead?
I think in the library, I'm not sure what the situation in the library, if that was a printer or a copier, I'm not sure what we're talking about the copy machines. So I'm not really sure at Howard Elementary exactly which was there.
It was the one that we had problems with, but I don't know.
They got a new one. They replaced
Was that a
it.
printer though, or
A
a copy?
printer, yeah.
Printer.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion?
I make a motion to move to accept the Kenmark Office Systems proposal for the lease of school administrative, that's the easy word. Usage.
Second.
Any other questions, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved. Next on the agenda is discussion of school meeting time. I'll turn this over to Mr. Whittaker.
Oh, I guess that was me, huh?
That was you.
We had, was it last time our meeting was at 6 o'clock?
Yes.
And we were all out of here at a very pleasant early evening. And I suggested, I was wondering whether there would be any interest on the part of the school committee to consider changing the meeting times. I was then reminded, of course, that if we changed it to 6 o'clock every night, that would hurt me the most, since I have to be at the collaborative on the first Wednesday meetings of the month. So I just wanted to see if there was any interest among my fellow members to change the second Wednesday meeting time to an earlier time, 6 o'clock, 6:30, something like that, since our meetings often run quite late.
For me, I lose money every week that I come to these meetings because I normally work till 8 at night. So it would mean I lose 2 hours every time. So I wouldn't prefer that, but I'll do what the committee says.
That's it.
I think it would be a fantastic idea, and I don't like the 2 different times on the 2 different weeks. If it was both both monthly meetings, I would say yes, but to do just one, I don't think that would, I think it'd be too confusing.
Sure.
I would not be in favor of an earlier start time, but how about on Thursdays instead of Wednesdays?
At the same time?
It doesn't matter.
Oh.
I mean, if it's a consideration for Sharon that she's losing work time, I would say keep it at 7. But I have to get a babysitter on Wednesdays, I don't have to get one on Thursdays. That's a big issue for me.
I could do an earlier time on Thursdays. At Wednesdays, I would always be late.
Well, it doesn't seem like we've reached much of a consensus.
No, but it's food for thought for everybody to, let's, think about this and,
Stephen, it seems as though for 2 people, it would be better to have it on Thursdays than Wednesdays. So that's a little different than the earlier time, but that would be one thing to consider. It doesn't make any difference for me, really.
Doesn't,
Doesn't,
I don't have a problem with
it would
Thursdays.
blow my mind, but other than that.
We have the same problem. Your concern was if we do one meeting at 6 and one meeting at 7, it would be confusing. How about if we got one on Wednesday and one on Thursday?
No,
Wouldn't that make the same? You want to move them both to Thursday?
I wouldn't, Wednesday is school.
She has to have this, yeah.
Tuesday and Thursday
Change is
are
hard.
gym days, and Wednesday, I have my routines.
Reason we went with Wednesdays is we were in competition with the meeting room in Chatham with the selectmen on Tuesday nights. Because we did it every other. So,
Would there be any adverse effect on anybody that's not us that you know of? I mean, teachers, administrators, you?
I have no life. I don't know about the rest of my team.
Well, it might be something to look for at, once our meeting calendar, which has already been set for this year, for the following year, because our calendar's through June for this year. So it might be if we want to try to switch a day, look for starting in July, just because we already have a published calendar.
it would be good to have that conversation with whatever new members come on board. So that decision should be made after the elections in May.
Organization.
On the other hand, we only our meetings really only have to be posted 48 hours in advance. So the fact that we have a calendar that's posted doesn't really mean we can't change all the rest of the meeting times.
I'd have to change my calendar.
Terry,
You'll be okay.
Very
It's send
structured.
you little reminders.
The only dog I had in the race was starting earlier, so I withdraw off the, I don't care if it's Wednesday or Thursday.
I do think that it is a hardship on people to be here one day rather than the other, rather than somebody just having to get used to a different day.
I'm really more flexible than I promise.
I know you are.
Oh wait, I just thought of another objection. Then I would have to have a collaborative meeting on Wednesday, a school committee meeting on Thursday.
So,
Yeah, that's a lot.
I would echo Nancy's thought. I think it's either one or the other. If we accommodate folks that have a conflict, then we do that every Thursday. Or if it's going to be a change to Thursday, I would suggest we wait until the new kind of June launching. And
So we can stick the collaborative meeting on one of the new members.
that's a thought.
there you go.
Okay, moving on.
Food for thought.
Strategic plan update.
So where we are with the plan is we're in the process of taking each of the bullets that exists. So we could say from the strategic plan, each column represents one of the 4 strategic objectives, and each of the bullets underneath that are a strategic initiative. So we're in the process of taking each of the strategic initiatives and outlining action steps that would get us there over the course of the next 3 years. The admin team has started a conversation on this. We are having a retreat, I guess we could call it. I don't know how many meals this will involve, but Tuesday afternoon going on, we'll try to flesh out as many of these as we can, but part of the fleshing out is also sort of an acknowledgement that there's some action items that that I think we're going to need, or some initiatives that we're going to need greater input on. So I think some of them we can do a good job as a smaller group fleshing out the next steps. But I think there are certain ones, particularly that involve parent community input that I think some of the action items that that we'll be identifying in that initial draft is to schedule meetings for broader input. It's just trying to not mix too many reports. One of the things I was going to discuss under the superintendent's presentation is just a meeting that Carla and Robin and Mark and a large number of teachers started during the early release that went on until about 7:00 this evening, which was to have 3 different math curricula groups come and present. And again, one of the, if we go with the second bullet, first column, the strategic objective is reverse engineer the district's math curriculum. And one of the first things that we've been looking at towards that is settling on the math curriculum. I know I've heard from both teachers and from the committee, some of our teachers don't have a book, they don't have the materials, and can we focus on one? So there's a presentation by 3 entities. At our next meeting, Carla will be presenting where that committee has landed for math curriculum as we move forward. But we've, so in terms of sort of filling out the action steps and grid, so we have line 1 is sort of selecting the math curriculum, the pilot. Line 2 is piloting the curriculum, providing professional development for that, adopting the curriculum, and so it's sort of working through the steps that one must go through, and then identifying what sort of resources do we need. We're not going to go and implement a math curriculum and just have the books just materialize. That's going to take a significant infusion of budget to bring the new curriculum online, and to have it implemented well and with fidelity. It's going to take a significant amount of money for professional development, ideally during the summer, to help the teachers gain familiarity with this new curriculum so that it can launch well. So there's a lot of planning again, and it's just working through that step. And I think that that's an example of one of those places where the I think from an administrative team, we can start outlining the steps and then radiate out to the staff with that plan and get some feedback there. But there are some spots that clearly we're going to need feedback from a wider group.
When we talked about this, you had said that anyone that was interested could work on this. And so I'm interested. I'd like to go to every single one of these meetings. And there may be some parents that would want to be involved. I think that with the math, for instance, if all the math teachers could be involved with it, there are some things that make sense that, of course, the administrators should be on it, or at least some administrator, but a breadth of information, I think, is so helpful, even at this is hardly the beginning stage, but the next stage. So is there some way we could get or put it out if somebody wanted to be on it? Some parent representative on, they may not be interested in all of these, but as you said, but the way you talked about it was that the administrative team would do all of this beginning stuff and then ask.
Yeah, I think, to be clear, if we take even just the one example, while we're looking at steps that are involved and putting it in paper, it's really us as a smaller group wordsmithing what Carla and a large group that is primarily teachers have created in terms of the roadmap for how to get from A to B for the math curriculum. I'm just using that as one snapshot of one bullet here. And I think for that one, the most, I'm just trying to look at this as the most expedient way to address that one, I think, is with a smaller group wordsmithing. I think, and I also think that it has a tight deadline. If we want to go and implement a curriculum and get a pilot going for next year, there's a lot of things that have to fall in place to have it going. And so I think there are times that opening it up, opening it wider potentially slows it down. And we've got a number. There's almost 20 different initiatives that are all kind of trying to move forward simultaneously.
Well, the math one, I really understand that. Are you saying we have money in the budget to buy math books for every level for next year?
I'd say at the moment, we have money in the budget. We don't know what the book is, so
Right,
that's
Okay. I get
that's
that.
part of the process.
Right.
Would there be a way, so what you're saying is that for that particular action item, or to develop the action items associated with the new math curriculum, it would be somewhat of a hindrance to open it up and schedule a series of meetings and things. But would there be a way to determine which of the other items in these lists would be susceptible to such a thing?
I think the second and fourth columns are ripe for that sort of outreach and input. I think there are ones that are more principals and curriculum leaders. That's kind of in that first column, and I'd say the second column is when it comes to supporting the learners. I'd say that's sort of a little bit of director of student services with some special education teachers and the classroom teachers trying to focus on that. The bottom part are principals and the teacher leaders, department heads. That's the group that you want to go and focus on. But clearly, one can't sit in a room with a bunch of administrators and come up with the best ways to include parent and community feedback in the decision-making process.
So in addition to, sorry for not raising my hand, in addition to designating them, which I totally see what you're saying on that, are you also able to look at some of these items and delegate some of that out? Like for instance, if fostering community partnerships that support our educational mission, in order to get that going, could you delegate that out?
I think we can. I think that one of the things that, at least in the model that we've been looking at is, who do we assign as the point person? Just making sure that somebody's responsible for driving this initiative forward, and that somebody is responsible for each action step. And
We don't have that in our folders.
I
don't
know
think.
it's
No, we don't.
I have one, but
Right.
I'm just saying, I'm not sure that people know what you're talking about.
No.
Okay.
Going back to what Sharon said, just that, you had said that people would be involved and that those who wanted to could be involved with these steps. And I understand your example of the math curriculum, that it does, in order to actually accomplish what needs to be accomplished in a timely manner, it doesn't make sense to have input from other parties, community members, parents, and that sort of thing. But that's one example. On most of the rest of these, they could and should have input, and I believe you had told us that they would. Is that correct? Did I hear correctly? Sharon heard the same thing.
but I think that's what I said. I think there are many of these that definitely can have input.
Can and will? Do we have a little more detail on that?
I would say that, I think what I said earlier is, as we develop action steps for this, I think some of the initial action steps would be, hold meeting, seek input. I think those are the things that we can identify as action steps for getting from A to Z.
It would be my understanding that developing the action steps would involve outside people outside of the administration as well. So I'm talking about them being involved earlier in the process instead of just, well, here's this little 1% of what we're doing on this particular item. Can you do that for us? A little more collaborative process.
Sure.
I mean, this was clearly stated at some meeting, I don't remember which one, that, I don't know, but somebody said they would be interested that was in the audience. And I would be interested, you know, I would request that the school committee members know when these meetings are. So if somebody feels inclined, they could attend it. And if somebody else has some interest, that they're not barred from the meetings. I'm not talking about having, you know, half a dozen or more people. I'm talking about a smattering of, you know, 2 or 3 people at the beginning time, if they feel like it, and then just so people can feel welcome to it.
If I understand what you said a moment ago, that the first step in each of the categories is to choose a person to be the point person, the person who's going to, you know, be in charge of the particular thing. And it would certainly make sense that that person, generally speaking, be an administrator, I assume, teacher, administrator, whoever has some expertise in the particular area. Could it be part of their role then to make a recommendation as to whether the continuing process should include members of the public or members of the school committee, or, you know, if that was something where, I understand you don't want to have a meeting to determine who's going to be in charge, but if you put somebody in charge, then they could make a recommendation as to what extent it would be a benefit to having members of the public, and then somehow that would have to be communicated.
I totally, oh, I'm sorry.
There might be an easy solution that I caught someone saying that column 2 and 4 clearly, as you review those targets, have an outreach that would not necessarily need skilled practitioners such as math or science teachers on that group. And my suggestion would be that Scott glean this, and where it's very clear that you can add to the list. For example, I would suggest the schools look into their school councils, the special needs system-wide parent group, and a general announcement via our web and also newsletters to parents who might be interested to call up a central office, say, gee, I'd like to join this particular action group that's about to start. And that might cover the parents. I don't have any problem with all of us being notified as we attack these things. Any of us who could sit in on it. And again, I think it's important that it would be consistent, not just to sit for a meeting, but I also see need for a lot of these where you would draw in the practitioners, the classroom teachers, the lead teachers, what do we call them, who would be invited to go with for 2 or 3 months to flesh out the action plans. But I think there's a way to make certain we have community groups at large as well as ones from the school councils who would be invited to join if they wished.
Sure.
I would just ask that, since I've worked with all of these things before, all 4 areas, and served on strategic plans for all of these areas, that I be notified, and I would not be able to come to all of them, but that would be one step. I would prefer it to be further than that, but I would not like somebody to be determining that. I mean, this has been the clash we've had all along about some of us feel like we should have more community involvement, and some people feel like we should just do it administratively, and some other involvement with teacher leaders. But, you know, I'll just leave it at that. Would that be okay to let the school committee know when they are?
Yes.
I would agree with what Sharon said about it defeats the purpose of saying that we're going to have community involvement and a broader a reach for like items 2 and 4, and then say a designated person is going to determine whether they're going to reach out to the community.
Well, I just meant for the ones that were not 2 and 4.
Oh, yeah,
I meant for the ones that were
Okay.
particularly involved with curriculum and things where.
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about 2 and 4.
No.
Yeah, yeah.
But there might be some member of the community that has, they were an expert in one of these things, and they'd like to be involved, to just know what their community's doing.
I don't disagree, I just don't want to see it slowed down,
Especially the math, we don't want that slowed down.
No, I mean, these are things, some of these things are new and improvements, and some of these things are things that have been needed to be done. So I just don't, I hate to see something that's really curriculum oriented. We really need a group of people who really know what they're talking about, and then have it slowed down by, well, we're gonna have a public meeting on this night, or these people can't attend, or how much notice do we have to give.
I don't mean any of that,
Yeah.
any of that.
Sure.
Just a couple of thoughts. Further, one, I think the school committee ultimately approves the strategic plan, including the action steps. So if someone tripped over an oversight that we clearly would have an opportunity to look over for a couple of weeks before we throw a vote its way, I think that's very appropriate. Secondly, I have the confidence in Carla, and the fact that you bring in the real experts, and I'm not talking about principals, I'm talking about the lead teachers in the math field, and in the science field, in the reading field, that have lived it. Hopefully they'll be invited to sit a committee of 5, 7, 8, 3, 4, whatever the number is, and begin to flesh this thing out on that level, because they're the ones who I think who could realistically, knowing the system and knowing their classroom and knowing their colleagues, come up with a step action plan timeline that would make sense to all of us. So when you talk about, or when we think it's going to just be an administrative initiative, I really don't think so. I think the X number of teachers, K through 12, who will be invited to join and make this thing happen the next 3, 4, 5 months, they're the linchpin that'll make sense.
Sure.
So what you were saying, Ryan, is that
I was referring to the first column and the third column.
the ones that are more focused on curriculum and teaching
Right.
and that sort of thing. Okay, I didn't get that, so that makes a difference to know that you were talking about those two and not the second and fourth columns.
Yeah.
But I would like to echo what Amy and Sharon said, that just being informed about the meetings and what is going on, not to slow them down, but if I were able to attend, for example, one of them, I'd like to sit in and listen, and just listen. It would be really helpful, because to have something presented to us already fully formulated, as Terry is saying, and then review it in a meeting and vote on it the next one, it's not always enough time or enough depth. So it's helpful to have more information up front, earlier.
Sure.
I just have a question about something I don't know about. At the high school, I understand, for instance, with math, that there's a math department head. And so I assume that would be the lead person up there for math. But at middle school does the same thing.
Middle school has the same.
But the elementary school, do you have like lead teachers in math?
We had last year, we had a lead teacher in math, a lead teacher in ELA, and
Literacy and STEM.
yeah, and STEM at the elementary level. What we heard loud and clear from the elementary teachers is that it wasn't a very effective model, because while you had lead teachers, let's say your third grade teacher, a third grade teacher was the lead teacher for math. The way professional development times and communities would get together, they would tend to aggregate by grade level. So your math person's here, but not meeting with your first graders or your fourth graders. So we actually, as a school district and school committee, and through the negotiation process, offered additional teacher leadership stipends to have a teacher leader at each grade level. And that teacher leader is taking the lead on the various topics for each of those grades. But and you'll find that some teacher leaders become math experts over time, and others maybe ELA, and they share with the team. But we've actually broadened the base of teacher leadership at the elementary schools, and I think that it's working better for us this year.
So for something like this, I don't know if this question is for you, Carla, but when you're dealing with math at the elementary level, are you going to have the teacher leader for each grade involved, or, yes?
It was,
That's
Carla
great.
kept saying,
Okay.
it was
That's
a
great.
large cast.
Yeah. Good.
Any other questions or comments?
So, I expect that, my timeline is that, by our last meeting in April, that we're bringing back something that looks fleshed out, that's started to get, start from a draft and get input, and, we'll still, so really try to get at providing great detail for each of the bullets.
Next on the agenda is the superintendent's goals. You want to do a run through?
Sure. In your packet is a set of goals that follow a template that the DESE recommends, where there are professional practice goals, student learning goals, district improvement goals. That ultimately are mine. It doesn't mean that these are the only things that I'm focused upon, but these are ones that I have discussed with the evaluation subcommittee, looking at a professional practice goal of continuing to get into classrooms with each of the principals and assistant principals, working collaboratively with each member of the administrative team and as the administrative team as a whole, to build our district's supervisory skills, and also our ability to go and support teachers in their practice. And my want is, and my goal for myself is to really get in and spend time in 8 classrooms with each of the principals and assistant principals, after which spend time debriefing. What did we see? What went well? What sort of kudos should we be giving, and what sort of advice can we give? And we also, as a team, earlier in this year, and we'll continue to do this throughout the year, brought together all of the evaluators to share examples of what our write-ups look like, and talk about how we're trying to support the teacher. What message are we trying to send? And it was a good process. It was one where everybody was passing around, here's the way I go about it, and then we sort of blind ranked. Okay, here's ones that looked really that had a clear message, and kind of came up with an example or exemplars of what a supportive write-up looks like, for these short unannounced visits that that the district has moved towards. So again, it's I think the best things that we can do are support our teachers in the classroom, and I think for me, I've always found it invaluable as a superintendent to know firsthand what's going on in our school district by being in classrooms. So that's on the professional practice end. On the student learning goals, we were just talking about the math curriculum. One of the things that I want to focus on is making sure that we make headway on a math, a unified math curriculum for Monomoy that moves us forward. I actually think that this is an urgent thing for us, that we don't want to waste time. We don't want to hesitate on. We need to move this one forward. The other thing that I also think is important to move forward is on the science And I think it's probably, it would behoove us to sort of focus first on the high school program and then move backwards from the high school program. I have a meeting next Wednesday with Carla and Bill and the science department head, and we've been talking about what that 8th grade curriculum might look like. We also have had a presentation from the science department that I fully support on their vision of where we could go with a 9 through 12 curriculum that really looks at physics first. Although to go physics first, one must first find a physics teacher, or preferably 2 physics teachers, and that, you know, so there's a bit of hiring of personnel that need to come into place to you know, to follow a different vision there. But should we find the right people to make that move forward, we would come and make a presentation here on a different direction for science that would take us, you know, in a different direction. But again, it becomes contingent upon finding physics teachers, which at the moment are finding a needle in a haystack. So the last one, and for me, really the most important one is, was the agenda item before this. It's bringing life to the strategic plan, to get the strategic plan developed and to move it from now a bulleted list of initiatives to action steps. And the death of every strategic plan is that it doesn't get implemented, that it just stays as this set of words on a piece of paper. So it's to see it move forward beyond just initiatives on a piece of paper.
Sure.
So I'm just trying to think about this and think about that little thing we fill out that has, the four areas on that is professional practice is one, student learning is one, teaching all children is one. So teaching all children, I don't know if that could fit under the student learning, like these textbooks that are being looked at. And
well, these are the categories that the DESE uses on that form. So the form that you fill out at the end of the year.
So there's not one that's teaching all.
I think there's the goals piece that the state has, and then there is sort of a standards-based rubric that the state also has.
Okay, this is just a thought, you can do with it what you want, but I was just thinking that if under number 1 or number 2, especially the curriculum, I'm sure that they're looking at these to be, how do they deal with the kids that have difficulty with math, and how do they deal with the kids that excel in math? So easily that could be incorporated, I think, but I'm not saying what you should do, I just am bringing that up. But the other thing on the rubric is something about community and parents. And so I don't think that's addressed here, and I'm not saying it necessarily has to be, but we have to rate something. So, just a thought.
And
I just would like to commend you on adding the math piece. That's the last time I saw it. I also would like to commend you for adding the time frames on here.
Yes.
One question that I do have is, one of the challenge areas that came up in your evaluation was around communication and community building, and whereas I feel like you've made marked improvements on there, and I commend you so much for that, because I do see a lot of growth in that area. I do feel like because that came up, it should be reflected somehow, some way in your goals.
Karen?
On the first goal, the professional practice goal, I was in the part of the superintendent evaluation subcommittee, and what we did was actually receive this information from Scott and ask for clarification, and that was all. We didn't really get into talking about anything in more depth. The first goal, the professional practice goal, this goal to me is completely inappropriate. This professional practice goal is supposed to be a professional development goal for a superintendent. This does not develop in any way an area of growth that is needed, an area of growth that the superintendent has and should be growing in. This is the superintendent saying, I need to tell my administrators how they're supposed to be evaluating teachers, and this is a quote, calling balls and strikes, telling them how to do that. Let's see, there were some other comments that were in a similar vein, but it basically was that no one is calling it as it is. So Scott's proposal is to work with the principals and assistant principals in the evaluations of the teachers. Now, I cannot see how in any way, shape, or form this is a development of the superintendent himself. I understand that he wants to get into the schools and be seen in the schools and so forth, and that's great, and that's wonderful, and that is appropriate, but not for a professional practice, in other words, professional development goal. Also, what really concerns me is that if the superintendent is doing evaluations with the principals and assistant principals of the teachers, what happens when there's a disagreement between what the principal thinks of the teacher and how the teacher is developing towards that particular teacher's own goals and what the superintendent thinks? It really scares me to think that if the superintendent is involved and he disagrees, that his opinion is going to win out. A professional practice goal or professional development goal would be something more like finishing the doctorate that we paid $5,000 for in the contract the last 3 years. That would be a professional development goal. A public speaking course would be a good professional development goal. I think this is completely inappropriate.
Karen?
Respectfully, Karen, I totally disagree with you.
Big surprise.
I think, excuse me?
Big surprise, sorry.
I think that the first half of the opinion regarding classroom observations for the superintendent, I think is very worthy of that column. I think that for a superintendent to come in and create a leadership team made up of 3 or 4 principals, assistant principal, and walk them through 2 and 3 years of classroom observations, even though that the principal is the prime evaluator. That's the person who's going to make that judgment based on how many staff members they're the prime evaluator of. So I think it's an absolute gift that the superintendent here or in Barnstable or any place else has the time and the willingness and the skill to go in and involve himself at that level. I think is a very worthy goal to have down here. So it's probably how you form that judgment, but I see it as a very valuable way to use the time of the superintendent within the school district.
Karen?
In Scott's own words, this is something that he's already been doing since September of 2013. I think by now he's probably done it enough. That's over 2 years. That's excuse me, I'm still speaking. That's 2.5 years that he's been doing this already. What?
We have all new assistant principals. So it's a learning project all over again for our staff. So it's an ongoing piece.
And the principals cannot work with their assistant principals on this?
To some degree they do.
Why is that not adequate?
Excuse me?
Why is that not adequate?
This is my opinion, it's not coming out of Scott's mouth. But it also gives Scott the opportunity to view and assess the administrator in their role as a person doing the assessment. So it's more than going in and looking at the teacher. It's also watching the administrator. So it's, you know,
That may
bigger picture.
That, I would not disagree that that is valuable, but as a professional development goal, it's not an appropriate goal.
That's your opinion. Karen?
I never thought about this, and, but I think, now that it's brought up, I think that the professional practice goal is something that, like, the teachers taking courses and learning new skills, so that type of thing, I think, is more appropriate for something that Scott would find that would teach him, you know, now that it's brought up.
Karen?
Well, besides the opportunity to work hand in hand with our principals that are new, I think it's an ongoing practice of any effective superintendent, because that person then gets the opportunity to see what the level of quality of instruction is. And that's actually what we're here for. How do we improve the quality of instruction of a 700-member staff, 300 or 100 or 10 teachers, that 4 or 5 times a year in a given building, the leader of the school system comes in and visits for 20 minutes or 30 minutes and gives you feedback. They may not necessarily be labeled as the prime evaluator, but clearly that is something that I see as a skill. And I find it very appropriate in.
Right.
It says here that the italics are, it literally says italics are used to clarify the type of goal using DESE definitions. And the first one says professional practice goal, address evidence-based deficiencies in content and/or, I can't even pronounce that word, pedagogical knowledge and skills by defining the content knowledge and/or professional practices to be learned. I'm going to just confess immediately that I have no idea what that means. I have absolutely no idea what that means, and I would really appreciate somebody explaining to me what that means. I don't know how to judge how good the goal is if I don't understand the.
I agree, I've been thinking.
I have no idea what that means.
I have too.
I can't pronounce one of the words, which is embarrassing enough.
Just learning new methods. Learning new methods. Like, if we were, I mean, there's something new in literacy, although I'm not sure that would be relevant for superintendent, but for teacher, what is on here that Carla and the team have for learning a new method in reading or math, those are new pedagogies, new methods. So I know that the administrators are doing something with skillful administrators, or that kind of thing is learning a new skill.
All of that says learning, it basically translates to learning a new skill. And I'm not being sarcastic, I really don't know what it means.
Well, what
And I hope there's somebody here who's a professional in education who can explain this to
Carla
me.
can explain it.
And I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but I don't know I don't know how to judge a goal if I don't know what the question is. Is there a clear definition of that somebody wants to offer me? No? Okay. It was a thought.
You're gonna have to go home and Google it.
I'll have to Google it. So I don't want to judge whether it fits if I don't know.
Where did that come from?
It says it came from the DESE.
Oh, from, got it.
I didn't see that on the DESE website.
I
actually looked at this information.
So to follow up on what Brian was saying, and I
Well, I don't know on television.
live anyway. I can piece together what it's looking for, but I guess to the point of to judge whether or not it's an appropriate professional practice goal, I assume Scott has done this a time or two to say that this meets the professional practice goal because X, Y, and Z. Is there a way you could explain that, or?
I think, I'll speak to some of the things. This district has moved towards short, unannounced visits. I came up at a time where I went through a skillful teacher course, and we didn't do short unannounced visits. We went in for an hour to, to sort of fully write out what was happening for an hour and make, make recommendations and it's really a wholesale or a shift towards moving away from a few but long times in classrooms to more short short stop-ins, and it involves a completely different mindset for how you plan your day. That you need to be able to go in and block off 2 hours of your day, go into classrooms for 20 minutes at a time, and be efficient about getting feedback. And I know that when I talk with Joan, she wants to make sure that some of the feedback I'm giving to my team is that when we're in classrooms for that 10, 15, 20 minutes that we're giving feedback, and that that's part of what I'm trying to do is sort of talk about, okay, what is it that we're going to be putting into TeachPoint, the software program that the administrators use. A lot of this for me is TeachPoint was not something that I used when I started, nor were the short unannounced. For me, it's learning firsthand what the principal's experience is. I think somebody mentioned it does allow me to see firsthand one aspect of their role that ultimately I need to evaluate them on. I think there was a concern, what happens if the principal and I disagree? At least so far, I don't think the principal and I have ever disagreed that something was either good or bad. I think that what has been, I think, transformative for me doing this is that Terry might be able to relate to this. When you go into a classroom, it's a very lonely experience. I mean, you typically do it as one administrator going in and observing. It's not something that you really ever get a chance to go in and then sit down with somebody and reflect on, what did you see, what did I see, and and you end up seeing different things and potentially able to point out more things. I think that the times I've gone into classrooms and I think have come out with a greater knowledge of what's going on, because Robin will see things and that I don't even pick up on, and I see things through very much a science guy's lens, and whereas others see it through a former gym teacher's lens or a former math teacher's lens, and it's so I think you end up getting some holistic benefits by the process. So it's been a learning experience for me, and I definitely hear you on that it would adding communication. Hear that too.
Sure.
I just have a question. On the one about the observations of classes, it says observe 8 classes with each administrator. So does that mean with each principal and each assistant principal? So you're doing 24 at the high school?
But keep in mind that these are the model is
10 minutes,
short
yeah.
unannounced visits. It's occasionally we'll stay longer, but the idea is to move towards that short visit, which again I think for those that have for Sam it's a change. It's that's not the model that he came up in. We also have been reaching out. A summer ago we brought in someone from Research for Better Teaching to facilitate the conversation. And more than half of the administrative team that evaluate is now different. So it's an evolving group there. Hopefully a stable group now.
Right.
And strictly in terms of my opinion on what this process is, I mean, Sharon, you've been on the school committee and involved in the school system for many, many years.
Decades.
And Terry obviously has, and you've been on the school committee in Chatham for 100 years. Because you're that old. But, I can remember, I've been involved with the interim school committee, and, I can't forget all the committees I've been on. But I'm willing to bet that you've never worked with a superintendent that was that involved in the classrooms that often. I heard that as a complaint with previous superintendents. I've never seen them in a classroom. The students wouldn't be able to identify this superintendent.
They never even come in my building.
And I'm not picking on any of the past thing, but I think this is wonderful in terms of the ability to have two people reviewing a teacher, having the principal review the teacher, and the superintendent review the administrator who's reviewing the teacher. I think it's a wonderful thing that's being done.
That is even having the principals in as much as they are is a huge change and big improvement. I think that the two things that Karen said that make sense, though, are questioning if it fits under here, but because we've only got 3 months left, to me, I'm not going to worry about that for 3 months, but I would expect that not to be there for September. And the other thing is, I think it could be a real conflict with, I know Scott says it hasn't happened now, but the superintendent is the supervisor for the principals who evaluates them. And so it would be appropriate for the superintendent to tell the principals if they're not doing the job right. But if, I'm not saying Scott's doing this, but if a superintendent was to say that teacher is lousy or something, and the principal didn't feel that way, or maybe felt they couldn't say that because they're being graded by this person, so they want to agree with them. I think that's an area that could be open for concern. I'm not saying it is, but the other thing is, I think that one, for the time frame, should say May, because I think the time frame for those observations is May. But my interest in it is that this group is going to be together till May, and it would be nice to have things as much as we can, unless it's a 2-year. Like the second one looks like a 2-year, so we'd evaluate what happens till that point. But anyway.
I don't understand the change to May.
Well, I think that Unit A has to be observed by May. But in addition, we're going to be doing our evaluations in May because there may be a change in this group, and plus we want to do it in a timely fashion, right? Okay.
Guess I'll have to disagree twice this evening. Sharon, I would like to, in my feeling, to see that every year for the superintendent to do. I see that a progressive, a sports analogy. I'm following the spring training of the Red Sox, and they've just brought on board Mr. Dombrowski as their new president and general manager of the whole baseball operation. He replaced a fellow by the name of Charrington and Epstein. One of the sports columnists last week said how this new fellow, who's not a young guy, he's been out in spring training on the field, and the 55 or 60 member breakdown coaches, catchers, pitches, how to run second base, double plays, and he's on the field watching as he goes through these 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 weeks. Now, he's a front office guy, just like you might say, analogy, Scott's a front office guy. I see that as a very progressive, positive thing for, in this case, the new Red Sox administrator, to get a feel for not only the coach who's teaching these 8 people who might be catchers or pictures, but also get a sense that the players get this relationship. And I'm sure he plans, he's out of Detroit Tigers, so he's done this for years. So I see it a positive. And I don't think you can have enough set of the eyes to watch quality teachers do quality work and reinforce that. Also, as far as May, evaluations are done throughout the year with various teachers, whether they're probationary or tenured, based on how many times it's free or short-term. But the school year begins the first day of school, and it ends the last day of school. And so administrators, principals, system principals, superintendents can drop in anytime. So I wouldn't put any timeline on when our leadership team drops into support staff and see what's happening. So those are my thoughts on that, and I think we really should move on.
Karen?
This terminology is not from DESE, it's from the Mass Teachers Association. DESE doesn't have anything that says this address evidence-based deficiencies in content and so forth. That's that's on the evaluation and the Teachers Association's reading of it. It's their own language, but it's not from the Department of Education, it's not from DESE. So I'm not really sure what it means either. It's in a completely different context. And as I said, it's for teachers, and it's not for teachers, administrators, and the third group, which is how it's divided on the Department of Secondary Education. So I don't really understand that because it applies to teachers only.
Nancy?
What are our next steps with this? What are our next steps with this? We're not voting on it.
We are not voting on it this week. We'll vote on it at our next meeting,
Okay,
as we try to
right.
talk about it one and vote the next. Any other? Moving on to subcommittee reports and the draft of the collection of payment for school meals. I will say, to the people of this subcommittee, I'm glad that it was taken away from the student's perspective, and it's all on the parent. I applaud you for
Thank you.
how you wrote this up.
We made a concerted effort to make sure that it was taken completely off the students.
Thank you. Nancy?
I appreciate that too, because I think the kids need to be able to eat lunch without affecting that their parents didn't pay for it. I'm reading it and I'm trying to look at it as the food service director in the central business office making the phone calls when they reach their limit on their account balance. And then I also look at it as a side of a parent, and it just seems like there's too many chances in the sense that the food service director will contact them when the balance reaches 0. In addition to, if you get the emails from the My School Bucks website, and then you get another phone call at $15 after, which I think I calculated is about a week worth of borrowing money, and then you get contacted again after 2 weeks before the certified letter. So it just seems to me that there's almost too many chances for the parents to, I look at it as a parent going, oh, well, I got 2 weeks to get that money in because they're gonna call me 2 more times. And then I look at it in the sense that the food service director and or business office is making 2 separate contacts to them. So I don't know if maybe tightening it up and just making one, I don't know, something didn't jive right with me. It just seemed like it was monotonous steps for not paying for your kid's lunch. That's my only
One of
question.
the reasons that we did that is because, first of all, there are parents that don't have an idea about that they're overdue. And so the first ones are very friendly, in case you haven't noticed, which would probably apply to a lot of people. The second one is more a, giving them time to get it done, because for some people, it would be a challenge to get that money. And then the only punitive thing is done. We wanted it to be done, there was a lot of discussion about when that letter would go out, but we didn't want that to be, even though it seems like a small amount of money, if somebody had 3 children, then it could be very overwhelming if it got too much larger. So there could be criticism for people that have plenty of money, but they just overlooked it. And it's just a tiny bit of money to them. But for other people, if it's going to take them a couple weeks to get that money together, it's going to really help them.
Right, agree. I understand that. Like I said, it just seems like there's almost too many. So maybe take out the one in the middle or something like that. I don't know. That was just my impression when I read it, but that makes more sense that way.
I was gonna echo what Sharon said. We were trying to figure out a way of being proactive so that it didn't get, the snowball effect didn't happen, and then you have a parent that can't get their head around paying this while still paying for lunches for that week and the next week. For Karen, it would be, if she got the letter, it'd say $30, and for me, it would be $90, with my
I
3
read it
or whatever.
as-
I'm saying, if you have 3 kids who are, you know what I'm saying?
I assumed it would be for all $30 for the whole family, is what I read it as.
I guess it is $30 for the whole
Changed it
family.
for that
We
very
did,
reason.
okay.
Yeah,
That was
that
probably
seems
before,
insane.
I think you must have changed that after I left, yeah. Okay,
Yeah, because that
so
would.
then I see what you're saying.
I get the point of all of this, and I take your point about, how many opportunities you're gonna give them. And of course, you also have the additional one where they write the check and forget to sign it. That buys them another month. But my real question is, how does this adversely affect the school system by giving them so much time? How deep in the hole do we get financially by giving these people this many opportunities? Because if it doesn't hurt us financially, then I have no problem with giving people as much rope as possible. Is there any way to answer that question? I mean, this must be coming out of a concern that the system doesn't pay for itself. But how deep do we get?
Well, and I think it's early, so, but there are some families that the hole's gotten deeper than I
Just
want,
a little.
they want, and I think the concern becomes, okay, if it doesn't get cleared and we move on to the next year or the next child, and it balloons. And there was a suburban school district that this became during the budget season a big issue that ultimately it impacted both the business manager and a superintendent, because how to explain this large deficit that was growing in food services. Again, it's early, we're not there, but it's, I think the principals that are at our meeting on Tuesday, got a list, and each of them have a multi-page list of students that are in the rigor with this, but only, I don't know, probably in your building, is it about 20 that are, so Chatham Elementary School, which is the smallest of our schools, has 20 students or families that are, that would be hitting into the, needing to meet the principal stage.
Sure.
So I have a question for Katie. Did you ever find out about if an account could be set up for the rare case, okay. 'Cause we were thinking about setting an account up if a church group, for instance, wanted to put some money in, somebody had a fire, it's not, because at these various levels, they're going to be given the free and reduced lunch form, and when they meet with the principal, they'll be, have an opportunity to talk with somebody about what extenuating circumstances, if there are any. But, so that's in the thinking.
We also talked about, it sort of dovetails with the efforts we put forth when we were working on the student activity
Yeah, the lighthouse
policy,
fund.
and they were having that, we called it a lighthouse fund, that it would be a place for we get monies back from school pictures, as an incentive, and it would be a place for the principals to be able to put those funds, and if there was a particular situation that maybe we don't know about, because we had looked at that fund as being for students in need at the principal's discretion, whether it's to fund a field trip that somebody couldn't go on, or it could be something like this, but we cannot operate food service in the red. And we can't, and what's important is, even if a family moves up, like that balance has to be, we have to continually, even the next year, put forth efforts to collect monies that are in arrears. But to be sensitive to there are extenuating circumstances that we may not be privy to, that principals might be able to lend a hand.
And that was another reason for continuing to put the free and reduced, as Sharon mentioned, because when it first comes out at the beginning of the school year with so many seasonal workers, everybody's a little more flush in September and might not feel like they're eligible then. But the situation is sometimes very different come January.
November.
Yeah.
That's right.
Karen?
I think last time we had asked you about the balance, the overall overdue balance, or how much was in arrears. It was about 1,500.
We're at about 2,500 now.
Sharon?
So this is a policy that, well, let me start here. This is a brand new program, this charger. So people are just kind of getting used to it. We're getting used to it. The parents are getting used to it. And so we're proposing this to be voted on and accepted. And then a year from now, if we find there's some issue, we can always go back and change it.
So I would say, yeah, is everybody pretty much in agreement, straw poll with the way this policy reads?
Sure.
So why don't we use tonight as the first reading for the policy? You guys need to give it a policy number,
Oh,
and next week, next school committee meeting, you will have the second reading and vote on the policy. Eric?
Question towards Katie on that $2,500 shortfall. Katie, would you say that the majority of that is at one level or another? Like elementary school children, middle school, high school kids, the more, or it's pretty much evenly balanced throughout the K-12?
Okay. Moving on to the superintendent's report.
Just to give everyone a construction update, I think in your packets, there's the first, hopefully last of these that took some time with legal counsel, that we received a request or a demand for a direct payment. And what happens there is we have a general contractor that we have for this project, Fontaine Brothers, and Fontaine Brothers has a number of subcontractors that worked to go do the masonry and the HVAC and this, that, and the other. This was a dispute between subcontractor and the general contractor over an amount of money that was owed. So the subcontractor, in this case, has the right to go directly to the school district and say, I want to be paid directly. So, so there's a process that gets that has to go through where money's set aside in an escrow until those two parties resolve this. So there's that in your packets. In terms of the construction, we had a buildings committee meeting last Thursday. So last Thursday, it's all blurring together, but almost the entire conversation dealt with how to best approach ensuring that the HVAC system that is on this building is what we expected to have. Towards that end, I have worked with our project manager, Skanska, and Mike Morrison of Skanska, to send a letter off to Mount Vernon Group, who are architects, and our architects have an engineer that they worked with, Siemens Engineering, that would look at the design specs for the rooftop units and ultimately approve, say the rooftop units met the design criteria. There are a number of things that both I and our project manager were concerned might not be either manufactured or installed to specification. So we have asked for clarity there. Once we get that clarity, we have a second letter ready to go to Fontaine Brothers to, again, to ensure that what's on the roof is to specification. There has been a lot of movement forward on the rooftop units. There were guys on the building today that were tightening electrical connections that may not have been properly tightened when the units were first installed. So they were just making sure that the 1,000+ electrical connections on the rooftop units were appropriately torqued, and we're still trying to get some resolution to what is behind the catastrophic freeze-ups that we've seen, 3 so far, 1 this year, 2 last year. It appears that those are programming related, which is sort of the great black box. You're assuming that the computer program that's running these units is right. And as I've expressed in the letter to the general contractor, we have about 2.5 months left on our warranty. It's a little distressing that in the 2 years that these units have been up and running, that the programming hasn't been resolved. And and you can imagine that if it's a computer program, and every time you tweak it, you just have to hope that the tweak didn't mess something else up. So we will have more to report back on how those rooftop conversations go, but it's not the end of the story yet on those. In terms of catastrophic rooftop failures, I mentioned in our last school committee meeting that at the middle school, we had 2 coils burst, one over the cafeteria, which didn't do much damage on a relative scale, but we had one that burst over the gym floor in the big gym in the middle school. When the water first came down, it got mopped up, and we were just keeping our fingers crossed that the floorboards, after they got wet, would not bow too much. And it was interesting over the first couple days. There was a little bit of bowing, but we would say the key of the basketball court was playable. It was a little bit rough, but playable. And then last week, it was just sort of odd how it happened, but all of a sudden, one section of the gym floor sort of lifted up about a foot, you know, so we could play King of the Hill on the gym floor right now. So the gym floor is not basketball playable on that section, so we will need to go have contractors come in and take a section of the flooring and replace that. So we were keeping our fingers crossed that the moisture on the wood would be benevolent, but no such luck. And I never really thought that wood floors would bow like that, but it created a little mini mountain.
Maybe I could dunk a basketball for the first time.
Pretty much. Got a little-
High enough, yeah.
I had mentioned, and I really want to give a lot of credit to the math group that has been looking at math curriculum. Carla and some on that committee will give a presentation for next meeting, but we spent from 3 o'clock till 2, early release, I forgot, from 2 o'clock till just before this meeting, listening to a presentation from Math in Focus, which is Singapore Math, and I believe Falmouth might use Math in Focus. Then there's Eureka Math did a presentation. I think our budding school districts on both sides of this use that, and also a Math Envision 2.0 from Pearson was the third presentation. They all had aspects that were very nice, and it was one of those, you got a chance to see 3 very good programs, and the teachers were involved in conversations about which would be easiest to implement, who has the best resources, and so we'll see how the conversations went in our presentation to come. There was an ad this past Sunday in the Boston Globe for a number of positions that we are wanting to fill. Again, the budget that we have is a level staff budget, but things that are in the ad, there's an ad for a physics teacher that we're still trying to find. There's an ad for an academic center coordinator that we are wanting to add at the high school, and this would be in the area right off of the hallway here in one of the rooms that the video folks are currently using, but really a program that would provide academic support for all struggling learners, not just those on ed plans. Also in the ad is a posting for an interim director of technology. When we last met as a school committee, Robin, Mark, and Bill were all with a set of teachers and parents interviewing candidates for the director of technology position. They had one finalist who came forward out of that, but we could not come to a good terms there. So we are searching for an interim right now. We have, I think, some in that initial group are interested, and I think the interim allows us to potentially give somebody who hasn't been a director the opportunity to show what they can do without it being a sort of a longer term commitment, or it's a sort of a trial period. And we also I got a phone call just before I came here today that there's at least one person who didn't apply initially who may be very interested in that interim posting. There are special education teachers at retirement that we will have at the elementary, middle, and high school level. Again, those are retirements that we'll be filling. There's a math teacher that we will need to fill at the middle school that's in the posting. There's a middle school math teacher who is going to be moving up here to the high school to do that math and the business classes. And there's a need for a middle school English teacher because we have an English teacher retiring and then a kindergarten teacher at Harwich Elementary School. So those are things in that ad. The other, just last thing in your packet to sort of loop back to conversations and or presentations that you've had in the past. Several months ago, the folks from CVEC came to, that's the Cape and Vineyards Electric Cooperative, came to talk about an adder, a sort of a fractional increase on their costs that would be decrease revenues from this from these solar initiatives coming our direction. It turns out that they couldn't get all the different municipalities to buy into the adder in this round, so they're not having the adder for this fiscal year, but have left it open maybe in the future. So, and then as I mentioned, our next school committee meeting, the high school will be here to present their program of studies. That's in its final round. I think the presentation will likely be each of the department coordinators will be coming to talk about what's new, exciting, and happening in their departments. Carla will give a presentation with her group on the math curriculum decision and where that's going. And I believe we'll also do a presentation on something called a universal screener, a tool that we'll be using to look at where students are placed when it comes to math and ELA.
Question?
Any questions?
Yeah, you said in the Globe ad, we're looking for a math teacher for that. For which school, sorry?
For the middle school. So middle school
Because
teachers.
that middle school teacher is moving up to do the business and math in the high school, is that correct?
Correct. And he's, the middle school teacher was a former high school teacher at Chatham High School who, as the district came together and there were reductions, bumped into a middle school role. And I think he's excited to be back where his heart has been.
Joe?
On the math, on the screener, what levels does that look at? What grade levels?
K to 12.
Really? So when you're looking at that, are you thinking about doing, right now it's heterogeneous grouping for elementary, and are you thinking about changing that? Okay. And middle school is a hetero or homogeneous grouping?
The purpose of the screener is really to track student learning.
Okay. So it's not
Reading
really
and in math.
having them placed in different classrooms?
No,
or
it's
something?
really more for intervention.
Okay, oh, good. Thank you.
So it's not for differentiation?
Yeah, you gotta come up here, please. The private conversations are tough.
Turn it
Guys,
all
we can't
over
hear.
Statler.
I'll get you for that.
It's intended to be used as a benchmark throughout the year to make sure that students are at grade level. So when your question about differentiation, it could lead to the teacher deciding that a certain intervention or enrichment is appropriate for students.
Okay. Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Come on.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Have a lovely evening.